Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos. Now, since I make a weekly video called Just One Book, where I take a look at the hottest book as far as I see it, that's coming out each week for New Comic Book Day, I thought I should look back on the year and do a top 10 list of the hottest comic books of 2020. Now, what determines a hot book? Well, that's highly debatable. At first, I thought I would leave it to the people and let them vote. So I created a few polls in different groups that I'm on Facebook to see if there was some kind of consensus about what the hottest book was this year. And although it was very enlightening and interesting what people voted for, I found that it did not determine what a hot book is. It absolutely determined what someone's favorite book is, or what book they might have the most copies of and are hoping to make the most money on as a return on investment. But it was not really a objective look at the hottest books of the year. So what I decided to do was to take a look at value on the secondary market. I figure that speaks to its popularity, and it speaks to potentially its longevity as well. I looked at that by looking at sales information on eBay, as recent as possible, for raw books, and also for graded 9.8 copies, and also their fair market value on GoCollect of 9.8 copies when that type of data was available. Now, I want to mention that this list focuses on a very specific group of comic books. It does not focus on store exclusives. It does not focus on ratio incentive variance, and it does not focus on second or later printings. It focuses on first printings that you could buy at your local comic book shop on release day for cover price. Okay, so there's a lot of books out there this year, and people have a lot of favorites, as I learned from my polls that I put on Facebook, and people get pretty bent out of shape when you don't at least acknowledge a book that was one of their favorites, or that in their perception had done very well. So I'm going to go through a list of honorable mentions right now. These are books that I took a good hard look at and found that they just did not make the cut in order to be included in the top 10. The first book I want to mention is crossover number 1. Now, this book does not have any information for fair market value on GoCollect, but it was a really hot book that people were really excited about, that people ordered in big numbers and ran out and bought, but it has not really seen any movement on the secondary market yet. But I'm a big fan, so I'm looking forward to what there is to come from crossover. The next book, very similarly to that, is King in Black number 1. This book also does not have any fair market value information on GoCollect, but it was a book that people were really excited about, that they ordered a lot of. It just has not seen any movement on the secondary market. One book that has seen some movement on the secondary market is Free Comic Book Day 2020 Spider-Man/Venom number 1. This has a fair market value on GoCollect of $32. Now, this book got hot because of the virus first appearance in there. Now, there's some debate about whether or not this was indeed the first appearance. It's actually kind of an interesting story of 2020 and a fun example of the pandemic's effect on comic books, about how there's debate about where the first appearance of virus lies. But for a free book that was selling for $2 or $3 on eBay there for a time and can be bought at a 9.8 for around $32, that's pretty impressive for a free book. And that's why it at least gets an honorable mention. The next book that I'm going to mention is Venom number 27. This book has a fair market value of $34 on GoCollect, and a lot of people were all over this book when it first came out because they were really excited about the Codex spec. There had been a lot of build-up coming to Venom 27, so everybody scooped it up and was really excited, and this book heated up at first. But then, similar to a lot of other specs this year, the Codex spec did not really pan out, at least not yet. We'll see. Some people still think it might. But as of right now, it's really pretty cold, and its value on the secondary market does not move it into the top 10. The next one I want to mention is Venom number 26. This book has a fair market value of $38 on the secondary market, and as I mentioned before with the free comic book day book, it has to do with the spec on the virus character. But once again, the virus character didn't quite pan out either, and so that spec is really cold. But once again, also, it's fun because of the impact that the pandemic had on the free comic book day and Venom 26. So it's a fun collectible to have regardless, but definitely didn't make it into the top 10. Another book I want to mention is We Only Find Them When They're Dead, number 1. This has no fair market value information on GoCollect. This book was just kind of a hot series that people are really excited about and are really enjoying reading. I know I am as well, but there's been little to no movement on the secondary market for this book, and that's why it didn't make the top 10, but I did take a look at it. Another book that I could have sworn before doing my research was going to be in the top 10, but it turns out it is not, is Dark Knight's Death Metal, Legends of the Dark Knights, number 1. This book has a fair market value on GoCollect of $40. Man, did I think that the Robin King spec was going to put this into the top 10. When this book came out, people were really excited about it, including myself, and people were scooping up every single copy that they possibly could. Well, I guess Dark Knight's Death Metal hasn't really delivered on the Robin King the way that people were hoping, because it is pretty cold right now and can be gotten for really inexpensively. That's not a word, but it's pretty cheap. You can almost get it just a little bit above cover price right now. Now, what does the future of the Robin King hold? I don't know, but right now it is pretty cold, and that is why it only gets an honorable mention. The next book I want to mention is a book called We Live, number 1. This has a fair market value on GoCollect of $50. This was a book that when I did my polls, people were like, what about We Live? It's so great. And I'm like, I haven't read it, and it's not really doing anything on the secondary market. But people were pretty voracious and with their support for this book. So I took a look at it, and it just didn't cut the mustard, so to speak. So that's why it's only on my list of honorable mentions. Another book I want to mention that I like a lot is The Department of Truth, number 1. This book has no fair market value information on GoCollect yet. But this book, you know, in my polls, I included this book in my polls that I did on Facebook, and this book did surprisingly well in my polls, even though on the secondary market, it's really not doing fantastic. You know, you can basically get a copy of issue number 1 for about $10. You can probably find a 9.8 of this for something like $75. It's a pretty good buy right now, and I think it has a lot of potential out there, but that potential is not fully realized at all, even though the fans are out there. Its potential on the secondary market is not there yet, so it only gets an honorable mention. The next book I want to mention is Venom, number 25. This has a fair market value of $60 on GoCollect. This book got a lot of heat, mostly because of the Codex and Virus cameos that are in the 2-page spread of this book. It got people really excited about these characters moving forward. Now, while the Virus spec and the Codex spec have died off a lot, for some reason this book is still kind of holding on there as far as its value on the secondary market. Nothing significant, but it's doing better than Venom 26, Venom 27, and the free comic book day book. So that's noteworthy in and of itself, but not doing so well that it made the top 10. The next book I want to mention is Spawn, number 309. This is the B cover with the full body shot of the gunslinger. This book has a fair market value on GoCollect of $70. Now, this book was really hot when it first came out. It kind of snuck up on people, it seemed a little bit. People scooped it up and it popped up in price right away. And it seems to kind of be hanging on to its, initial raised up price. It's nothing crazy, nothing wild, but it's doing pretty well, it seems, all things considered. Not really any growth, but nice and steady and solid. But not so great that it made it into the top 10. And my last honorable mention today is a book that I had to throw it on here. It's Something is Killing the Children, number 7. This has a fair market value on GoCollect of $75. Now, I first included Something is Killing the Children on my first poll, and it really didn't get any votes. I think it got 0 votes. But then, so I left it off my second poll, and then I had people like in the comments be like, where's Something is Killing the Children? And I'm like, I tried issue number 7 before, and people weren't interested. Yes, but Something is Killing the Children. I'm like, I know, I'm a big fan. I know. So I looked back at it a little bit when I was doing this research, and this book is doing pretty well on the secondary market. Now, I don't think it's for any reason. It's not for any kind of content reason in the book. I don't think there was any kind of like first appearance or anything like that. It could be because of the Wind preview in there, but I don't think that's it. I actually think, and I don't know this for a fact, that it probably has to do with it being a low print run. Because it was right before people really started to warm up to Something is Killing the Children and really started to take notice. So I think that this has become a hot book because it's a little bit scarce, because people kind of like got with the program a little bit more around issues number 8 or 9. All right, so that concludes my list of honorable mentions. Now let's dig in and let's talk about my top 10 hottest comic books of 2020. We will start with number 10, and number 10 is The Last Ronin, number 1. Now let's go over the numbers first. The Last Ronin, number 1, can be purchased on eBay raw for about $32. Now currently there is no data about any graded 9.8 copies or any fair market value information on GoCollect. This book squeaked in to the top 10. Now, if I had gone off of the polls that I did on Facebook, this book would have been number 1 in a landslide. This book was by far got the most votes for being the hottest book of the year. But when I look at it from a secondary market perspective, it's really not the hottest book of the year. In fact, it's number 10 as far as I consider it. And I think a lot of the excitement for this book is that there are a lot of them out there, and that a lot of people got their hands on them, and that a lot of people are hoping that it increases in value. Whether or not it does, I am not quite sure. I actually think that over time this book will cool off. It'll always have probably more value than its $9 cover price, but I really don't think it's going to be like retirement fund money or anything like that. But only time will tell. The next book I want to talk about is number 9 on my list, and at number 9 is Ice Cream Man number 20. This book can be purchased for $40 raw and can be purchased in a 9.8 at $85 and has a fair market value on GoCollect of $65. Now I want to be clear, I'm most specifically talking about the B cover, and the B cover is the one with the Dr. Seuss homage. And that's why this book is doing well, is because of the Dr. Seuss homage. People also, I did not originally have this on my polls on Facebook, and people were like, what about, Ice Cream Man number 20? That book, shot that that series into the stratosphere, and it's mostly true. I mean, I don't know about the stratosphere, but it's doing really well, and a lot of the reason it's doing well is especially now because of the popularity of that Dr. Seuss story and covers and the multiple printings that came out afterwards. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because it's in a lot of ways it's a cover by, and that book being an anthology. It's people were excited about the Dr. Seuss of it, and I guess it kind of woke people up to the creativeness of this series, which is why it ends up being still popular on the secondary market and at number 9 on this list. Next, we're going to look at the number 8 entry on this list, and that is Daredevil, number 25. Now, this book can be purchased raw on eBay for around $45, and currently there is no data about 9.8 graded sales or any fair market value information on GoCollect. Now, this book is a little bit, you know, I'm cutting this book a lot of slack putting it on this list, and especially putting it on this list at number 8. Yes, its raw sales are doing really, really well, and we'll see how it does in sales of 9.8. But it is a really recent book. And the spec on it is, of course, because Elektra is now appearing as Daredevil. That's not going to happen forever. At some point, Elektra's going to go back to being Elektra, and Daredevil's going to return being Daredevil, and everything's going to be like it always was, and the spec for this book will probably drop significantly. It'll probably always have more value than cover price, but nothing near what it has right now. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll figure out a way to keep that Elektra as Daredevil spec going. Until then, it is what it is right now, and it's doing really well right now. So as it stands at this point at the very end of 2020, I had to go ahead and put it on the list at number 8. Next on the list at number 7 is another issue of Ice Cream Man. It is Ice Cream Man number 17. Now, this book was a little bit of a surprise to me. This book, it's going for $65 raw. And at a 9.8, you can get it for $95 with an FMV on GoCollect of $85. Quick note on that. If you get the opportunity to buy the book raw for $65 or buy a 9.8 copy of it for $95, buy the 9.8 copy for $30 more. Please, it'll cost you at least, you know, in shipping and everything, $25 or $30, you know, just to get it graded. So if you can find this book for $95 at a 9.8, definitely consider scooping it up. And if you see it at $65 raw, there were multiple examples of this book selling for around that amount, and my mind was blown. You know, but people apparently are doing it. Just don't be that guy. Do yourself a favor. Buy the 9.8. And the only reason I can think about that people are buying this book is because I think issue number 20 heated up the entire series, and people then looked to this book and its Action Comics homage cover and bought it for that reason. If you know something that I don't know about Ice Cream Man, other than the fact that I hear it's very good, I'm not reading it, I hear it's very good. If you know something about this book that's special, other than the fact that it has this Action Comics homage cover, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to know. But I respect this title. I respect the people who are buying this title. I'm glad that people are finally paying attention to this title because it seems like people are reading it and really, really enjoying it. The next book I want to mention to you comes in at number 6. And at number 6, we have Spawn number 306. This is the D cover with Gunslinger Spawn on the cover. These books can be purchased raw for $55, or you can find them in a 9.8 at $130, and the fair market value on GoCollect is listed as $100. Now this is obviously 100% because of the Gunslinger Spawn spec there on the cover. We talked about his full body shot earlier in this video in the honorable mentions. Now we're talking about the headshot version. And because of this one, cover appearance of this character, I mean, people really are, I guess, excited about Gunslinger Spawn. Because of this, this book is doing really, really well on the secondary market. And, it's actually pretty impressive that people are that interested and that it's continuing to do that well enough to put it above so many other great books at number 6 on the list. All right, now we're into the top 5. And at number 5, we have Thor number 2. Now, Thor number 2 can be purchased for around $46 raw and can be purchased in a 9.8 at around $133, and it has an FMV on GoCollect of $120. At first, I was like, well, Thor number 2 is going to be on my honorable mentions. Then I started doing research on Thor number 2, and I was like, holy moly, no, this book is firmly in the top 10. I was really, really surprised, because why? Why? Is it because Donny Cates destroyed the DC universe, tongue-in-cheek kind of allegedly version-wise in this book? Maybe. Is it because it has a SERANGE Academy preview in it? Probably not, because there are other books that have SERANGE Academy previews in them that aren't doing this well. So it's really, really interesting to me to see that this book is continuing to do as well as it is doing on the secondary market. I'm a fan, so I'm glad to see it, but at the same time, I was legit surprised. Especially when you look at the next entry on our list at number 4, which is Thor issue number 5. Now, issue number 5 is not doing all that much better than issue number 2. You can buy it for about $50 raw on eBay. In a 9.8, it's about $135, and its FMV on GoCollect is $120. These numbers are very close to the numbers of Thor number 2. But I understand why Thor number 5 would have these numbers. It's because it's the first appearance of the Black Winter. And for the first 4 issues of Thor, we were leading up to what what the wrath of the Black Winter was ultimately going to be. And then finally in issue number 5, the Black Winter made its first full appearance. Then in issue number 6, it kind of went poof. But Donny Cates has said recently that he is not finished with the Black Winter. We have not seen the last of the Black Winter, which has started to heat up the spec again on Thor number 5. But the fact that Thor number 2 was as close to Thor number 5 as it was on this list, I found very surprising, because once again, I thought Thor number 5's place was much more secure as the first appearance of the Black Winter. And we will see what happens in the future if Donny Cates keeps his promise of sorts to have the Black Winter make a return. We'll see if there continues to be even more growth with Thor number 5 in the future. All right, so we're into the top 3. And at number 3 on this list, we have Batman number 89. This book is now selling for around $65 raw and can be purchased in a 9.8 for about $120 with a fair market value on GoCollect of $150. Now, I want to say really quickly here that in general, I'm kind of hoping that my calculations on eBay and the GoCollect number are kind of sort of similar. In some cases, they aren't. In this case, the GoCollect fair market value is pretty decently higher than the eBay sales number. To me, that is an indicator that this book is cooling off. So something to keep in mind. But that being said, Batman 89 was the first taste that the comic book community got of Punchline. It is the first cameo appearance of Punchline. And some people will say it came out first and Punchline is in it, therefore it is the first appearance of Punchline, end of story. Well, you know, we live in a world where we have cameos and full appearances, and in that world, this is definitely falling into the cameo section. But people were super excited about this book when it first came out. It popped up in value so fast and just kept going and going and going and going and going. And I have to admit, I am a fan of Punchline. As you all know, if you've been watching my videos, I'm also a big fan of James Tynion IV, and I'm a big fan of his creation, Punchline. I'm excited to see what the future holds for her. And we know that she is not going anywhere anytime soon. Will she be the next Harley Quinn? Doubtful, but hopefully she will have some legitimacy and some value in her own right moving forward. And the secondary market has determined that they are not giving up on Punchline yet. So it's why you see Batman 89 here at number 3. Batman is a high print run book, so a decent amount of those copies are out there and people were able to get their hands on them, but it's still doing really well on the secondary market. Now moving on to number 2 on my list, we have what is probably my biggest regret of the year. And at number 2, we have SERANGE Academy number 1. This book can be purchased raw for around $76 and can be bought at a 9.8 for around $193 with a fair market value of $190. Now, why is this my biggest regret of the year? Because I had this book. I had a stack of these books in my hand at one point, and I decided to myself, I was like, well, that sounds like a fun idea. Marvel's putting together an academy for magic users in the Marvel Universe. That's fun and interesting. Well, I'm sure that that'll be a wonderful book for somebody else. And I left it on the shelf and I watched them all go away. Well, after people read it, they were like, huh, this could make a really fun animated show for Disney Plus, you know? Wouldn't that be great? And for some reason, the collective consciousness of comic book collectors all decided this at the same time. And they're like, yeah, no, wait, that is a good idea. And they started scooping these up voraciously. And they wanted them so bad that the price of them just shot up so high. It has been absolutely one of the biggest success stories of the year. Now, there are multiple first appearances in there, although I guess you could argue that those first appearances are actually in the preview books, like the one found in THOR number 2. But we won't go there for this discussion. For now, we will look at SERANGE Academy on its own merit, and that it's the first issue of this story and the first time these characters appeared in a full issue. Yeah, although I hear it's a good read, I haven't read it myself. People say it's a lot of fun and that it's a good read. Man, it is crushing on the secondary market. And if Disney has a brain in their heads, they are absolutely going to put this make this into a show, because obviously the audience is there and is proven to be there in the comic book community. So if they didn't make it into a show, I imagine that the spec on this book would drop off significantly. But once again, I don't think Disney and Marvel are that dumb. I think they're going to figure out a way to make this into a show, either a live action or an animated show sometime in the future. But that takes us to what I consider to be, through my research in the secondary market, to be the hottest book of 2020. So coming in at number 1, it is Hella Risen number 3. Now this book is going raw on eBay for around $75, and in a 9.8 it can be purchased for about $203 with a fair market value on GoCollect of $200. This book is just performing a little bit better than SERANGE Academy on the secondary market. And it is for a reason that we discussed just a moment ago. It is the first full appearance of Punchline. And I think you could absolutely argue, I think it'd be tough to argue against the fact that Punchline is the hottest new character that came out of 2020. You know, like I just said before, I'm excited about the future of Punchline. I'm interested in the future of Punchline. People were really themselves excited about Punchline when Punchline first came out, you know. Like I said again, you know, I have to talk about Punchline some more because we're talking about another book where she appeared. She's not going to be as popular as Harley Quinn, but hopefully she will have her own popularity. And part of the reason that this book has been doing so well is not only is it the first full appearance of Punchline, which always does better, as you know, than the first cameo appearance, but also it's because nobody was reading Hell Arisen. Hell Arisen was not being ordered by comic book shops. People were not expecting a character like this to get their first full appearance in a book like this. So this book was especially under-ordered. Retailers did not have an opportunity to figure out that Punchline was going to be in this book ahead of time and order up on it. So this book was especially hard to find. So because the demand was so high, because people wanted the first full appearance of Punchline, and because the supply was so low, because people were not really reading Hell Arisen, it is why this book has and continues to do so well on the secondary market. So well, in fact, that it ends up at #1 as the hottest book of 2020. So there's my list. Now's your chance to tell me how dumb I am and about how I missed this or I missed that. What I would ask you to do, though, is that if there's a book just like, Jeff, why didn't you mention blank? Do a little research on it first. See if you can tell me what it's selling for raw, what it's selling for in a 9/8, and and I can look up what the FMV is on GoCollect. But make sure you're factoring that in, and it's not just like, well, it's because it's my favorite, or it's because it's the one everybody was talking about. I'm definitely interested in knowing if I missed anything, so put it down in the comments if there's something you think that I missed. If you like this list and you think I nailed it, it was the ultimate top 10 list of 2020, well, hit the like button, or even if you think I came close, hit the like button and let me know that you appreciate the fact that I made this video. You had some fun watching it, and that maybe even potentially you agreed with some of my picks. If this is the first one of my videos that you are watching, I thank you so much for watching this video, especially all the way to the end. I invite you to hit the subscribe guy and hit the notification bell as well so that you are informed when I put out new videos. As always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.